Welcome to the Unveiled Epikekos channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery. In the shadowed corners of history, where the whispers of forgotten truths echo through the ages, there lies the enigmatic life of Benjamin Franklin, a man whose existence bridged the mundane and the mystical, drawing threads from ancient wisdoms long buried under the sands of time. Born on a crisp January day in 1706 in the bustling port city of Boston, Massachusetts, Benjamin emerged into a world of colonial grit and Puritan rigor, the 15th child in a brood of 17, sired by Franklin, a humble candle maker and soap boiler whose hands were forever stained with the residue of toil. The family home on Milk Street was a cramped haven of survival, where poverty wrapped around them like a persistent fog. And young Ben's earliest memories were of flickering candlelight casting elongated shadows on walls that seemed to hold secrets from the old world. Secrets perhaps carried across the Atlantic from England's ancient Druidic groves or the alchemical labs of Renaissance Europe. His formal schooling was a fleeting affair, cut short after just 2 years at the Boston Latin School, not due to lack of intellect but the harsh demands of a working-class life. Yet in those brief classrooms, Ben glimpsed the allure of knowledge, a spark that ignited an unquenchable fire within him. Self-education became his secret ritual, devouring books borrowed from booksellers or pilfered from hidden shelves, his mind wandering through tales of ancient philosophers like Socrates and Plato, whose ideas on virtue and inquiry seemed to resonate with some innate, mysterious force guiding his curiosity. By age 12, he apprenticed in his brother James's printing shop, a den of ink and presses where the air hummed with the rhythm of creation. But it was here that young Franklin uncovered his first hidden truth: the power of words to challenge authority. Under the veil of night, he penned satirical essays under the pseudonym Silence, a widow whose sharp wit skewered Boston's elite, slipping them anonymously under the shop door, only to watch them ignite debates in the taverns. This act of rebellion, born from skepticism toward the rigid hierarchies of church and state, hinted at deeper mysteries, whispers of ancient rebellions like the mysteries of Greece, where initiates sought enlightenment through hidden knowledge, much as Ben disciplined himself in solitude, forging a path of independence that would define his destiny. As tensions brewed with his brother, culminating in beatings and bitter words, Ben plotted his escape, a runaway journey at 17 that carried him southward on a sloop bound for Philadelphia. Arriving in 1723 with but a few coins, a Dutch dollar, and 3 puffy rolls of bread clutched under his arm, his clothes disheveled and his stomach gnawing with hunger. This arrival, often romanticized, held a forgotten layer of mystery. In the cobblestone streets of Philadelphia, Ben stumbled upon a Quaker meeting house where elders spoke of inner light and silent revelations, echoing the esoteric teachings of Hermetic traditions from ancient Egypt, passed down through whispers that would later entwine with his life. Hungry and unknown, he symbolized the self-made ambition of the New World, yet beneath it lay a quest for uncovered truths, as if the city's gridiron layout, inspired by enlightened geometry, hid maps to lost knowledge. From these humble beginnings, Franklin rose as a printer, establishing his own shop by 1728, where the clack of type became his symphony, and he founded the Pennsylvania Gazette, a broadsheet that not only reported news but wove in moral fables and humorous anecdotes, drawing from forgotten folklore of indigenous tribes and European grimoires. His Poor Richards, launched in 1732, became a vessel for practical wisdom, embedding proverbs like "early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise," which echoed the rhythmic incantations of ancient Celtic bards, blending humor with life lessons that reached the common folk, teaching thrift, industry, and the subtle art of observation. But Franklin's mind delved deeper into the arcane. As a scientist, he pursued experiments that unveiled nature's hidden forces, most famously his 1752 Kite Experiment in a thunderstorm proving lightning's electrical nature, a discovery that shattered myths of divine wrath and revealed electricity as a primordial energy, akin to the thunderbolts of Zeus in ancient myths or the vital sparks described in lost alchemical texts. This led to his invention of the lightning rod, a simple iron spike that tamed the skis, saving countless structures from fiery ruin, while his bifocal glasses merged near and far vision in a stroke of ingenuity, and the Franklin stove revolutionized hearths with efficient warmth, all born from a philosophy that knowledge must serve humanity, a tenet rooted in the humanitarian mysteries of ancient mystery schools like those of Pythagoras, where numbers and harmony govern the cosmos. Franklin's inventions were not mere gadgets, but keys to unlocking forgotten efficiencies, improving everyday life through applied science that felt almost magical in its practicality. At the core of his being pulsed a philosophy of pragmatism and reason, self-improvement through his famous 13 virtues: temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility, each a stepping stone in a personal alchemy of moral progress, inspired perhaps by the Stoic disciplines of Epictetus or the Confucian harmonies that had trickled into colonial libraries via hidden trade routes. He believed in freedom of thought, religious tolerance, founding the Junto Club in 1727 as a secret society of mutual improvement, where members debated ideas under oaths of secrecy, mirroring the initiatory rites of ancient Rosicrucians and civic responsibility, urging social cooperation in a world rife with division. Yet unexplored shadows lingered, rumors of Franklin's involvement in clandestine networks, where he corresponded with European intellectuals decoding ancient manuscripts, seeking truths about human potential buried since the fall of Atlantis, as whispered in Platonic dialogues. As a statesman, Franklin's diplomatic prowess emerged during the colonial unrest, representing Pennsylvania in London from 1757, where he navigated the corridors of power with wit and wisdom, uncovering hidden intrigues in the British court that foreshadowed revolution. Back in America, he played a pivotal role in the Continental Congress, drafting the Declaration of Independence in 1776 alongside an Adams, infusing it with enlightened ideals of liberty that echoed the democratic experiments of ancient Athens, though with a mysterious twist. Forgotten drafts revealed coded references to universal rights drawn from indigenous Iroquois confederacies, a hidden influence on the Founding Fathers. Sent to France in 1776 as ambassador, Franklin secured the crucial alliance that turned the tide of the American Revolution, charming the French court with his fur cap and rustic charm. Yet behind the scenes, he delved into Parisian salons buzzing with Masonic secrets and voltaic experiments, negotiating loans and treaties amid espionage that felt like a thriller from forgotten scrolls. His hand in the Treaty of Paris in 1783 sealed independence, but hidden stories tell of midnight meetings where he deciphered encrypted messages from allies, unveiling betrayals that could have doomed the young nation. As a founding father, Franklin's civic organizing knew no bounds. He founded the Library Company of Philadelphia in 1731, America's first subscription library, stocking it with volumes on ancient sciences and philosophies, fostering education as a gateway to enlightenment. He established volunteer fire departments in 1736, drawing from Roman aqueduct designs buried in historical tomes, and co-founded the Pennsylvania Hospital in 1751, for the afflicted, embodying compassion that mirrored the healing temples of Asclepius. His University of Pennsylvania, born from the Academy of Philadelphia in 1749, promoted practical learning over rote dogma, while learned societies like the American Philosophical Society, which he presided over from 1769, probed into natural mysteries, from comet trajectories to ancient fossils that hinted at lost worlds. These institutions were more than buildings. They were beacons against ignorance, infused with a sense of discovery, as if Franklin sensed the veil between past and present thinning, revealing forgotten truths like the mechanism's gears, inspiring his own mechanical curiosities. In his later years, Franklin became a global intellectual, advocating for the abolition of slavery in petitions to Congress in 1790, his voice rising against the chains that echoed the pharaoh's tyrannies of ancient Egypt, pushing for peace and unity in a fractured world. His death on April 17, 1790, at age 84, sparked worldwide mourning, with French revolutionaries honoring him as a symbol of liberty. Yet hidden eulogies spoke of his final days deciphering an ancient cipher from a lodge, unveiling a prophecy of democratic flourishing. Franklin's legacy endures as the ultimate self-made man, a bridge between science and politics, reason and humanity, whose ideas, summed in quotes like "an investment in knowledge pays the best interest," and "well done is better than well said," shaped modern democracy, innovation, and civic life, weaving ancient mysteries into the fabric of the American dream. But delve deeper and plot twists emerge. Was his electrical kite a mere experiment or a ritual invoking thunder gods from Norse sagas? Did his diplomatic triumphs hide alliances with shadowy figures guarding lost knowledge from the Library of Alexandria? In the rising tension of colonial strife, Franklin's calm demeanor masked a climax of revolutionary fervor, where hidden letters revealed near misses with British assassins, leading to a satisfying conclusion of independence won through cunning and virtue. Complex characters surrounded him, rivals like his brother James, allies like the enigmatic, and through it all, Franklin's journey uncovers forgotten truths, from indigenous wisdom influencing constitutional debates to alchemical influences on his inventions, inviting us to ponder the mysteries that still linger in history's folds. In the shadowed annals of colonial Boston, where the salty harbor winds carried whispers of old-world secrets long forgotten in the rush of new beginnings, Benjamin Franklin's early years unfolded like a cryptic manuscript, pages turned by the hands of destiny and self-determination. Born into the humble flicker of candlelight on that January day in 1706, though some ancient calendars might argue the date with celestial precision, Ben was thrust into a family teeming with life, yet constrained by the invisible chains of poverty. His father toiling endlessly over vats of soap and wax that seemed to hold alchemical mysteries of transformation. The young boy's world was one of crowded rooms and meager meals, but within him burned a curiosity as ancient as the stars, drawing him to pilfered books that spoke of lost civilizations. Egyptian scribes etching wisdom on papyrus, Greek philosophers debating the essence of virtue under olive groves, fuels for a mind that refused the boundaries of formal education, which ended abruptly after mere whispers in the classroom. Instead, Ben forged his own path through self-taught lore, absorbing tales of hermetic knowledge and empirical wonders that hinted at hidden forces governing the universe, forces he would one day tame with his own hands. Apprenticed at 12 to his brother James's printing shop, a dimly lit forge of ideas where the press groaned like a beast from forgotten myths, Ben learned not just the craft of ink and paper, but the art of subversion. Under the cloak of anonymity, he birthed Silence, a fictional widow whose essays pierced the veil of authority with satire sharp as a druid's dagger, critiquing the hypocrisies of Boston's elite and echoing the rebellious spirits of ancient bards who challenged kings. Yet this independence bred conflict. Beatings from James revealed the fragility of familial bonds, pushing Ben toward a fateful escape at 17, a runaway voyage to Philadelphia that mirrored the epic migrations of ancient peoples fleeing tyranny for promised lands. Arriving disheveled, with bread loaves as his only companions, he wandered streets laid out in geometric patterns reminiscent of sacred sites like Stonehenge, where alignments whispered of cosmic order. Here in the city of brotherly love, Ben uncovered a hidden truth, the Quaker ethos of inner light, a mystical illumination that resonated with esoteric traditions from across the seas, guiding him to establish his own printing empire. By 1728, his shop hummed with the rhythm of progress, birthing the Pennsylvania Gazette, a conduit for news laced with moral fables drawn from indigenous legends and European long buried in dusty tomes. Poor Richard's followed in 1732, a yearly oracle brimming with proverbs like "well done is better than well said," which carried the weight of timeless wisdom, perhaps echoing the aphorisms of Confucius or the riddles of Sphinx-guarded secrets. But beneath this public facade lay deeper mysteries. Ben's involvement in the Junto, a secretive club founded in 1727, where members gathered over ale to debate philosophy and improvement, mirrored the initiatory circles of ancient mystery schools, fostering ideas that would reshape society. It was here that whispers of Freemasonry entered his life, a brotherhood steeped in symbols from Egyptian obelisks and Solomon's temple, influencing his later diplomatic intrigues. As a scientist, Franklin delved into nature's veiled enigmas, his 1752 Kite Experiment not merely a brush with lightning, but a ritualistic unveiling of electricity's primal force, akin to invoking Thor's hammer or Zeus's bolts from mythic lore. The lightning rod that followed saved spires from heavenly wrath, while bifocals merged visions near and far in a stroke of optical alchemy, and the Franklin stove warmed homes with efficient fire. All inventions born from a creed that knowledge must uplift humanity, a principle rooted in the humanitarian ethos of lost Atlantean sages or Pythagorean harmonies. Yet hidden experiments abounded. In 1749, he hosted electrified barbecues, shocking turkeys to tenderize their flesh, once nearly electrocuting himself in a flash that left him dazed, a near-fatal dance with the elements, and explored the science of flatulence in his satirical essay Fart Proudly, penned at 75 to mock pretentious academics, proposing research into odorless emissions as a boon to society, drawing from bodily mysteries as old as humoral theories from Hippocrates. His philosophy, pragmatic and enlightened, crystallized in 13 virtues: temperance to humility, a personal code for moral alchemy, practiced cyclically like the phases of the moon, acknowledging human imperfection with humility. He championed reason over dogma, religious tolerance amid Puritan strictures, and civic duty, founding institutions that echoed communal ideals from ancient republics. The Library Company in 1731, stocking volumes on forbidden sciences. Volunteer fire departments in 1736, inspired by Roman engineering. The Pennsylvania Hospital in 1751 for the afflicted, mirroring healing sanctuaries of Asclepius. And the Academy of Philadelphia, evolving into the University of Pennsylvania, where practical learning pierced the veil of ignorance. But shadows deepened in his personal realm. His marriage to Deborah Reed was a tapestry of complexity, begun in common law after her first union dissolved in mystery, her vanished husband perhaps a ghost from bigamous Thales. Together they raised William, Ben's illegitimate son of unknown maternity, a secret buried like a pharaoh's curse, who would later betray his father's revolutionary zeal as a loyalist governor, their rift a tragic echo of familial schisms in ancient epics. Deborah bore Francis, lost to smallpox at 4, and Sarah, whose lineage continued the Franklin thread. In London from 1757, representing colonial interests, Franklin navigated corridors of power laced with intrigue. Here a hidden chapter unfolded. The Craven Street bones, unearthed in 1998 from his residence's basement pit. Over 1,200 fragments from 15 souls, marked by surgical saws and drills, alongside turtle shells laced with mercury from experiments. These remnants tied to William, Franklin's friend and anatomist who ran a clandestine school in the house from 1772, dissecting cadavers procured illicitly from grave robbers amid laws restricting bodies to executed criminals. Perished from a dissection wound in 1774, his blood mingling with the secrets below. Did Franklin know of this macabre academy beneath his feet, where forbidden knowledge of the human form was pursued in the dead of night? The mystery lingers, a forgotten truth hinting at the era's desperate quest for medical enlightenment, perhaps with Ben's tacit approval in the spirit of scientific progress. Another veiled act, Franklin as America's first. In 1772, he acquired leaked letters from Massachusetts Governor Thomas Hutchinson urging curtailment of colonial liberties. There must be an abridgment of what are called English liberties, and forwarded them anonymously to Boston allies, hoping to expose Crown agents and ease tensions. But publication ignited fury. Speculation led to a duel, and Franklin confessed publicly in 1773 to avert bloodshed. Summoned before the Privy Council in 1774 amid news of the Boston Tea Party, he endured Solicitor General Alexander's venomous hour-long assault, puns mocking his electrical fame while branding him an incendiary. Silent in his spotted Manchester velvet suit, Franklin was dismissed as Postmaster General, the humiliation forging his rebel resolve. Years later, at the 1783 Treaty of Paris, he donned the same suit for a little revenge, sealing independence with defiant poise. His diplomatic triumphs in France from 1776, securing alliances amid salon whispers of Masonic codes and Voltaic wonders, hid flirtations that earned him a rake's reputation. Ladies crowning him with laurels, his charm a bridge to aid that turned revolutionary tides. Yet he debunked mesmerism in 1784, using blind tests to expose animal magnetism as placebo, a scientific myth-busting predating modern skeptics. Later years brought advocacy against slavery, petitions in 1790 decrying chains echoing pharaonic tyrannies, and pursuits like air bathing, sitting nude by open windows for health, defying conventions with ancient naturist vibes. He chased tornadoes on horseback, swam miles in rivers inventing fins at 11, earning posthumous Swimming Hall of Fame honors. Death came in 1790, mourned globally, his legacy a beacon of self-made enlightenment, bridging eras with ideas that birthed democracy. Hidden threads, basement bones, leaked letters, weird whims, reveal a man of profound depths, whose life wove mystery into history's fabric, inspiring eternal discovery. Yet beneath these hidden threads lay even more enigmatic layers to Franklin's existence, strands that pulled from the arcane tapestries of Freemasonry and alchemy, where ancient mysteries whispered through the corridors of his enlightened mind, connecting the colonial inventor to the shadowed wisdoms of Egypt's pyramids and the hermetic secrets of Renaissance adepts. Initiated into Freemasonry in 1731, at John's Lodge in Philadelphia, Franklin rose swiftly to become Grand Master of Pennsylvania by 1734. His involvement not mere social affiliation, but a profound engagement with symbols that echoed the geometric harmonies of Solomon's Temple and the initiatory rites of ancient mystery cults, where seekers unlocked the divine architecture of the universe. Whispers persist of his ties to Rosicrucianism, that elusive brotherhood blending alchemy and mysticism, perhaps influencing his experiments with electricity as a modern echo of the vital spark sought by alchemists like Paracelsus, transmuting base elements into gold, or in Franklin's case, harnessing the thunderbolts once attributed to gods. Indeed, his direct interest in alchemy surfaced through his possession and study of George's Pyrotechny, a 1696 text on chemical transformations, which he referenced in correspondences, hinting at private pursuits in the laboratory where he blended empirical science with the philosophical stone's elusive quest for perfection, a forgotten truth that blurred the lines between inventor and sage. In London, during his residencies, Franklin frequented circles where Masonic principles intertwined with discussions of ancient Egypt's esoteric knowledge, the obelisks and hieroglyphs symbolizing eternal truths that he wove into his advocacy for a written constitution, inspired by the fraternal symbology that traced back to pharaonic builders, fostering a republic built on harmony and order much like the cosmic designs of old. Delving deeper into unexplored events, one uncovers Franklin's youthful flirtation with vegetarianism, a choice born not just from thrift, allowing him to spend saved pennies on books, but from an ethical aversion to animal slaughter echoing the Pythagorean abstinences of ancient Greece, where souls were believed to transmigrate across forms, a hidden philosophy that shaped his early views on life's interconnected web. At 16, he adopted this diet during his apprenticeship, devouring greens and grains while pondering the moral geometries of existence, only to abandon it later upon the seductive aroma of fried cod, a moment of human frailty he recounted with wry humor in his autobiography, revealing the imperfect alchemy of self-improvement. Yet this episode concealed a broader curiosity about bodily mysteries. Franklin's infamous essay, Fart Proudly, composed in 1781 as a satirical jab at the Royal Academy of Brussels, proposed scientific inquiries into mitigating flatulence through diet or chemistry, drawing from ancient humoral theories of Galen and Hippocrates, where winds within mirrored the elements without, a whimsical yet profound exploration of human nature's hidden indignities. Among the lesser-trodden paths of his life lies his prowess as a swimmer, a skill honed from boyhood when, at 11, he invented swim fins, crude paddles strapped to his hands, to propel himself across Boston's ponds, inspired perhaps by Leonardo da Vinci's aquatic designs or the aquatic lore of ancient Atlanteans, as if tapping into submerged knowledge from lost civilizations. This affinity for water led to daring feats. As a young man in London, he swam 3 miles in the Thames, performing aquatic tricks that astonished onlookers, including a demonstration for nobility where he floated effortlessly, his body a vessel harmonized with the currents, much like the Nile's sacred flows in Egyptian myths. Later, he mapped the Gulf Stream during Atlantic voyages, charting warm waters that sped ships eastward, a discovery born from querying whalers and captains, unveiling ocean mysteries that echoed the navigational secrets of Phoenician explorers, hidden currents that shaped trade and destiny across. In the realm of music, Franklin's invention of the glass in 1761 unveiled another layer of enchantment, an instrument of spinning glass bowls producing ethereal tones through moistened fingers, evoking the celestial harmonies described in Pythagorean texts where music bridged the soul to the spheres. The proponent of animal magnetism employed it in hypnotic sessions, and rumors swirled of its haunting sounds, inducing trances akin to ancient oracular rites at Delphi, where vapors and melodies unlocked prophecies. Franklin himself played it masterfully, composing pieces that soothed the mind, yet hidden stories tell of its darker side, reports of performers driven to madness by its vibrations, a forgotten peril that led to its decline, as if the instrument tapped too deeply into the psyche's veiled abysses. Turning to his civic shadows, Franklin's role as America's first Postmaster General in 1775 hid intrigues of communication networks that mirrored the messenger gods of Hermes in Greek lore, facilitating revolutionary correspondence through encrypted missives and dead drops, a clandestine web that evaded British spies. Unexplored is his printing of colonial currency during the Revolution, designing bills with anti-counterfeiting leaves and mottos drawn from classical virtues, embedding symbols of unity that harked back to Roman republics, yet fraught with the mystery of forgeries that nearly undermined the cause. His never-patenting of inventions, like the lightning rod or stove, stemmed from a Masonic ethos of communal benefit, refusing personal gain in favor of humanity's advancement, a principle rooted in the alchemical sharing of knowledge among adepts. Personal enigmas abound. Franklin fathered an illegitimate son, William, in 1730, whose mother's identity remains a shrouded secret, speculated to be a servant or acquaintance. A scandal buried in discretion yet fracturing later when William's loyalist sympathies led to exile. A familial rift echoing the tragic divisions in ancient sagas like the House of Atreus. Deborah, his common-law wife, endured long separations during his diplomatic sojourns, managing the household amid whispers of his Parisian flirtations with ladies like Madame, who proposed marriage after Deborah's death, a romantic intrigue laced with Enlightenment wit and the courtly mysteries of Versailles. In his twilight, Franklin's abolitionism intensified, founding the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery in 1787, petitioning Congress in 1790 to end the trade, his words invoking the chains of ancient tyrannies from Sparta's helots to Egypt's bondsmen, a final crusade that, though unsuccessful in his lifetime, planted seeds for future liberation. He pursued whimsical health regimens, like air baths, sitting nude by windows to invigorate the skin, a practice drawn from Spartan hardiness and Native American traditions he admired, having negotiated treaties with Iroquois leaders whose confederacy influenced the Constitution's federal structure, a hidden indigenous wisdom with European enlightenment. Even his death held mysteries. Buried in Philadelphia's Christ Church yard, his simple gravestone belies tales of a secret will provision for cities to accrue interest over centuries, funding apprenticeships. A temporal alchemy turning modest sums into fortunes by 1990, benefiting generations. Worldwide mourning followed, with French assemblies donning black, honoring him as liberty's architect. Yet forgotten eulogies hinted at unpublished manuscripts on universal religion, blending deism with ancient pantheons, a lost synthesis of faiths. These veiled facets, swim fins from boyish ingenuity, haunting melodies, alchemical pursuits, Masonic depths, paint Franklin not merely as inventor or statesman but as a conduit for eternal discoveries, bridging ancient enigmas to modern wonders, his life a serene river flowing through history's hidden caverns, inviting endless contemplation as the mind drifts toward slumber's embrace. Yet even as these enigmatic currents of Franklin's life swirl into the mists of memory, deeper veils part to reveal forgotten facets that tie his earthly pursuits to the timeless riddles of existence, much like the ancient oracles who divined futures from scattered bones or starry alignments, guiding seekers through the labyrinth of fate. Consider the obscure truth of his mastery over the chessboard, a game born from the shadowed courts of ancient India and Persia, where kings and pawns mirrored the cosmic battles of gods and mortals. Franklin, an avid player from his youth, penned the first known American essay on chess in 1786, The Morals of Chess, extolling its virtues as a discipline of strategy and foresight, much as the game's origins whispered of karmic cycles and calculated destinies, and his prowess earned him posthumous induction into the Chess Hall of Fame, a hidden legacy where he outmaneuvered opponents in Philadelphia taverns and Parisian salons, perhaps drawing parallels to the alchemical transmutations of lead to gold through intellectual alchemy. In these quiet contests, Franklin uncovered metaphors for diplomacy, where every move concealed deeper intrigues, echoing the veiled maneuvers of rituals he cherished, rituals that themselves harked back to the temple builders of Solomon, whose architectural secrets encoded the universe's grand design. Delving further into unexplored shadows, one encounters Franklin's fleeting foray into hoaxes and satirical deceptions, a craft honed from his anonymous writings as silence, but evolving into elaborate fabrications that toyed with public credulity, akin to the trickster gods of Native American lore or the illusory Maya of ancient Hindu philosophies. In 1747, he penned a fictitious court transcript titled The Speech of Miss Polly Baker, a tale of an unmarried mother prosecuted for her fifth illegitimate child, who cleverly argued her case by invoking biblical mandates to multiply, only to reveal a twist where the judge marries her, a hoax so convincing it fooled European scholars for decades, reprinted as fact in French encyclopedias. Unveiling Franklin's delight in exposing societal hypocrisies through narrative sleight of hand. A forgotten art that blurred truth and fiction, much like the Platonic cave's shadows deceiving the chained. This penchant for mischief extended to his 1782 supplement to the Boston Independent Chronicle, a forged newspaper insert detailing fabricated atrocities by Native Americans allied with the British, complete with invented scalp bounties, designed to sway European opinion toward the American cause, a propaganda rooted in the rhetorical deceptions of ancient sophists, yet shrouded in ethical ambiguity that history has often overlooked. Amid these intellectual games lay the mystery of Franklin's amassed fortune, a wealth that at one point crowned him the richest man in America, not through inheritance or speculation but the pragmatic alchemy of industry and investment, transforming ink-stained hands into a portfolio of printing ventures, real estate holdings in Philadelphia's burgeoning grid, and lucrative postal routes that spanned colonies like the Silk Roads of ancient Asia, carrying not spices but ideas. By the 1740s, his retirement from printing at age 42 allowed him to pursue science and public service, his riches funding experiments and institutions, yet hidden ledgers whisper of shrewd loans to fellow Masons and anonymous philanthropy that echoed the communal treasuries of ancient Greek city-states, where wealth served the polis rather than the self, a principle Franklin embodied by never patenting his inventions. Refusing royalties on the lightning rod or stove in favor of universal benefit, as if channeling the selfless wisdom of Buddhist sages who renounced material chains for enlightenment's path. In the personal sanctum of his later years, Franklin composed an epitaph at the tender age of 22, a poetic prophecy inscribed in 1728 that foreshadowed his deistic beliefs in resurrection and renewal, reading like a hermetic incantation, "The body of B. Franklin Printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here food for worms. But the work shall not be wholly lost, for it will, as he's, appear once more in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author." This youthful musing, buried in obscurity until his autobiography revived it, evoked the alchemical rebirth of the phoenix from Egyptian myths or the soul's transmigration in Pythagorean doctrines, hinting at Franklin's early grapplings with mortality and moral perfection, themes that permeated his 13 virtues and lifelong quest for self-refinement, a forgotten verse that transformed his grave into a riddle for posterity. Further mysteries surface in his medical innovations, often overshadowed by grander inventions yet profoundly humane. In 1752, tormented by his brother John's kidney stones, Franklin devised a flexible urinary catheter from silver wire coiled like a serpent from ancient healing staffs of Asclepius, a device that eased suffering and predated modern urology, drawing from anatomical knowledge gleaned from clandestine dissections and the forbidden texts of, whose Renaissance revelations pierced the veil of bodily secrets. This act of fraternal mercy concealed a deeper curiosity about human frailty, mirrored in his own battles with gout and pleurisy in old age, where he experimented with herbal remedies and electrical therapies, blending empirical science with the holistic cures of indigenous healers he encountered during treaty negotiations, forgotten synergies that wove Native American plant lore into colonial medicine's tapestry. As ambassador in France, Franklin's cultural icon status hid flirtatious escapades that bordered on legend, charming the salons with wit that rivaled Voltaire's, yet a veiled episode involved his proposal to the widowed Madame in 1779, a playful yet sincere overture at age 73 to the 58-year-old intellectual, couched in a dreamlike letter where he envisioned her late husband in Elysian fields, urging union. A romantic intrigue laced with Enlightenment rationality and the courtly loves of medieval troubadours, rejected gently but preserving a friendship that influenced his diplomatic triumphs, a hidden heartbeat in the annals of revolution. Meanwhile, his debunking of animal magnetism in 1784, through blindfolded experiments that exposed it as imagination's power, echoed the skeptical inquiries of ancient atomists like Democritus, who dismissed supernatural veils for material truths, a scientific takedown that safeguarded reason amid Parisian mysticism's swirl. These obscure threads, chessboard strategies akin to cosmic games, hoaxes unraveling societal illusions, fortunes forged in communal gold, epitaphs prophesying rebirth, medical mercies coiled in silver, romantic reveries in Elysian dreams, illuminate Franklin as a mosaic of mysteries, a self-made sage whose life bridged the arcane whispers of antiquity with the dawning light of American ingenuity, inviting the listener to drift deeper into history's serene embrace, where forgotten truths slumber like buried treasures, awaiting the gentle turn of curiosity's key. Yet as the veils of Franklin's mosaic continue to unfurl, revealing ever more intricate patterns woven from the threads of ingenuity and enigma, we descend further into the labyrinth of his lesser-known exploits, where the boundaries between science, satire, and the supernatural blur like ink on ancient parchment exposed to the elements of time, drawing us into a tranquil reverie of discovery that lulls the mind toward the peaceful shores of slumber. Among these hidden gems lies Franklin's audacious experiment with electricity not merely as a force of nature, but as a culinary alchemist's tool. For in the mid-1740s, amid the crackling sparks of his Philadelphia laboratory, he harnessed the vital energy he had tamed to roast turkeys and other fowl, electrocuting them in a flash that tenderized the meat and infused it with a peculiar zest. A forgotten feat that predated modern microwave wonders and echoed the mythical thunderbolts of ancient gods like Indra in Vedic lore, who wielded lightning as both weapon and sustenance for the divine feasts of the heavens. This electric barbecue, performed before astonished guests who marveled at the sizzling spectacle, nearly cost him his life on one occasion when a miscalculation sent a jolt through his body, leaving him dazed and humbled, a brush with mortality that whispered of the hubris in Prometheus's theft of fire from Olympus, reminding Franklin of the delicate balance between mortal ambition and the cosmos's guarded secrets. Venturing deeper into the arcane corners of his diplomatic shadows, one uncovers the obscure truth of Franklin's role as the sole founding father to affix his signature to all four cornerstone documents that birthed the United States: the Declaration of Independence in 1776, the Treaty of Alliance with France in 1778 that secured crucial aid amid revolutionary peril, the Treaty of Paris in 1783 that sealed peace with Britain, and the Constitution in 1787, a singular honor that marked him as the enduring thread stitching the nation's fabric, much like the mythic fates of Greek antiquity who spun, measured, and cut the lifelines of heroes. Yet Franklin's hand wove not doom but destiny, embedding enlightened principles drawn from Roman republics and Iroquois confederacies into the republic's very sinews. This unparalleled distinction, often overshadowed by his contemporary spotlights, concealed a personal odyssey of quiet perseverance, traversing oceans and courts where hidden alliances and whispered betrayals lurked like specters in Versailles gilded halls. His fur-capped persona, a disguise for the shrewd negotiator who charmed monarchs while unraveling plots that could have unraveled the young nation's fragile unity. In the serene glow of his intellectual pursuits, Franklin's fascination with the occult fringes of science led him to dismantle the myth of mesmerism in 1784, appointed by King Louis XVI to a royal commission alongside luminaries like Dr. Ironically, the inventor of the guillotine, to investigate claims of animal magnetism, a supposed invisible fluid that could heal through hypnotic trances and magnetic passes, evoking the ethereal forces described in ancient Egyptian papyri or the vital essences of Chinese qi. Employing blindfolded trials and placebo deceptions, Franklin exposed the phenomenon as the power of suggestion and imagination, a scientific unmasking that shattered the veil of pseudoscience, much like the skeptical probes of Democritus into the illusions of the senses, a forgotten triumph that safeguarded reason from charlatanism's seductive grasp and foreshadowed modern psychology's explorations into the mind's hidden depths. Yet this debunking held its own mysteries. Reports of induced trances during the investigations hinted at subtle vibrations influencing the psyche, as if Franklin's glass instrument, with its celestial tones, inadvertently tapped into the same mesmeric realms he sought to demystify, blending harmony and hypnosis in a symphony of the subconscious. Amid the tranquil undercurrents of his daily rituals, Franklin practiced a peculiar form of hydrotherapy, immersing himself in cold baths or sitting unclothed before open windows in his air baths, a regimen inspired by the hardy disciplines of Spartan warriors and the naturalist traditions of indigenous peoples he admired, believing that exposure to fresh air invigorated the skin and fortified the constitution against ailments. A hidden habit that echoed the elemental purifications of ancient druidic rites under open skies, where communion with nature restored the body's primal equilibrium. This unconventional therapy, detailed in his letters with the casual wit of a philosopher at ease with eccentricity, extended to his advocacy for ventilation in homes and hospitals, innovations that reduced the spread of fevers and echoed the architectural wisdom of Vitruvius in Roman times. whose treatises on airflow in public baths concealed engineering secrets that Franklin revived for the common good, turning personal quirks into public health revelations. Delving into the shadowed annals of his literary deceptions, Franklin's hoax of the supplement to the Boston Independent Chronicle in 1782 stands as in propaganda's dark arts, fabricating tales of Native American scalps bundled with inflammatory letters from British officers, smuggled to Europe to inflame anti-British sentiment and bolster French support, a ruse so convincingly crafted that it fooled historians for generations. Mirroring the illusory narratives of ancient fabulists like Aesop whose morals veiled deeper truths, yet Franklin's forgery carried the weight of wartime necessity, a moral ambiguity that history has gently veiled, revealing the inventor's mind as capable of bending reality to serve liberty's cause. This episode, buried amid his voluminous writings, intertwined with his earlier Polly Baker satire, painting him as a trickster archetype akin to Loki in Norse sagas or Coyote in native lore, whose deceptions unraveled injustices and exposed follies, inviting contemplation on the fine line between truth and expedient fiction in the forge of revolution. Further mysteries emerge from Franklin's environmental foresight, a vision ahead of his era. In 1751, he penned observations on population growth and resource strain in Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, predicting America's expansion while warning of overpopulation's perils, insights drawn from Malthusian precursors and the cyclical famines chronicled in ancient Chinese annals, a prophetic whisper that echoed through time to modern ecology, yet concealed within were subtle nods to sustainable practices inspired by Native American land stewardship. Treaties he negotiated revealing hidden wisdoms of crop rotation and forest harmony that influenced his agricultural experiments at his Market Street home, where he cultivated exotic plants from global correspondences, blending botany with the alchemical quest for nature's elixirs. In the intimate whispers of his family saga, the enigma of his grandson Benjamin Franklin unfolds, heir to his printing legacy who edited the Aurora newspaper with fiery anti-federalist zeal, indicting presidents and sparking sedition trials under the Alien and Sedition Acts, a turbulent inheritance that mirrored the familial curses of ancient houses like the, where knowledge passed down ignited conflicts anew. Yet's untimely death from yellow fever in 1798 left unfinished the radical press traditions Franklin had seeded, a forgotten branch in the family tree that extended his skepticism of authority into the Republic's nascent struggles. Meanwhile, Franklin's own battle with the bottle in youth gave way to temperance, one of his virtues, yet hidden anecdotes reveal his love for Madeira wine in moderation, toasting alliances with a glass that symbolized the fermented wisdoms of Dionysian mysteries, where revelry met restraint in enlightened balance. These unfolding layers, electric feasts invoking divine sparks, singular signatures weaving national fate, mesmerisms unmasking amid hypnotic harmonies, air baths communing with elemental forces, propagandist hoaxes bending reality's veil, prescient environmental prophecies rooted in ancient cycles, familial legacies igniting sedition's flames, enrich the portrait of Franklin as an eternal enigma, a bridge spanning the arcane echoes of antiquity to the innovative dawn of America, where each discovery invites the soul to wander deeper into history's soothing twilight, cradling the listener in waves of timeless wonder as eyelids grow heavy with the gentle pull of sleep's embrace. Yet as the tranquil currents of Benjamin Franklin's enigmatic legacy carry us further into the veiled recesses of his extraordinary existence, where the echoes of ancient wisdom mingle with the sparks of colonial innovation like fireflies dancing in the twilight of history, we uncover layers of eccentricity and audacity that paint him not merely as a statesman or inventor, but as a whimsical trickster whose life pulsed with the unpredictable rhythms of a Renaissance soul reborn in the New World, drawing from the chaotic myths of Loki or the clever deceptions of Hermes to challenge the boundaries of convention and credulity. Delve into the obscure annals of his scientific follies, and one encounters the startling episode of his near-fatal flirtation with electricity as a culinary executioner. For in the crisp air of a 1740s Philadelphia gathering, Franklin sought to demonstrate the lethal precision of his harnessed thunder by electrocuting a turkey for a festive roast, a bizarre ritual that evoked the sacrificial offerings of ancient Aztec priests who invoked divine forces for bountiful feasts. Yet in a twist of hubris, a misaligned charge surged through his own body instead, enveloping him in a blinding flash that left him convulsing on the floor, his limbs numb and his chest pounding as if the gods themselves had rebuked his tampering with nature's primal energies. In a letter to his brother John, he recounted the mishap with characteristic humor, admitting the shock had shaken him to his core but spared his life, a hidden near-death experience that deepened his reverence for electricity's mysteries, much like the shamanic visions induced by lightning strikes in indigenous lore, where survivors emerged transformed with insights into the unseen world. Prompting Franklin to refine his experiments with greater caution while whispering to friends over tankards of ale that some of his ideas, perhaps the very conception of the lightning rod, sprang from the hazy inspirations of drunken revelries, those convivial gatherings in dimly lit taverns where minds loosened by spirits unlocked the alchemical brews of creativity, echoing the Dionysian symposia of ancient Greece where wine flowed as a conduit to philosophical epiphanies. Venturing deeper into the shadowed corridors of his literary masquerades, Franklin's penchant for pseudonymous mischief reveals a gallery of alter egos that transform the printed page into a stage for satire and scandal. Personas crafted with the cunning of ancient fabulists who veiled truths in tales to evade censors and stir the masses, much like Aristophanes lampooning Athenian elites through comedic veils. Beyond the well-trodden path of silence, he birthed Busybody, a gossipy commentator whose letters in the American Weekly Mercury dissected the foibles of local merchants with biting wit, settling old scores against his former employer Samuel by mocking his pilfered ideas in a vendetta as petty and poetic as the rivalries in Homer's epics. Then came Alice, another middle-aged widow persona who penned scandalous for his Pennsylvania Gazette, weaving tales of prominent society's indiscretions that blurred the line between fact and fabrication, a delightful deception that titillated readers and shielded Franklin from reprisal, akin to the illusory narrative spun by Scheherazade in Arabian Nights to beguile kings and preserve life. These hidden identities extended to outright hoaxes that rivaled the tall tales of, such as his 1747 fabrication, The Speech of Miss Polly Baker, a fictitious courtroom defense of an unwed mother prosecuted for her fifth child, who cleverly invoked biblical imperatives to multiply, culminating in a twist where the judge marries her, a story so convincingly wrought that it duped European scholars for decades, reprinted as veritable history in French tomes. Unveiling Franklin's mastery over misinformation as a tool for social commentary, much like the satirical scrolls of ancient Roman writers who critiqued emperors through invented dialogues, a forgotten art that exposed hypocrisies while entertaining the populace with the thrill of the forbidden. In the serene flow of his aquatic adventures, Franklin's boyhood ingenuity blossomed into feats that bridged the mundane and the mythical, for at the tender age of 11, he fashioned primitive swim fins from wooden paddles strapped to his hands, propelling himself through Boston's ponds with the grace of a merman from Celtic folklore, where sea dwellers guarded underwater secrets akin to the lost knowledge of Atlantis that Franklin's curious mind seemed destined to unearth. This affinity for water culminated in a legendary display at 19 during a Thames River excursion in London, where he plunged into the currents and swam an astonishing 3.5 miles from Chelsea to, performing acrobatic feats both above and beneath the waves, somersaults, floats, and dives that astonished his companions as novelties from a new world. Evoking the aquatic prowess of ancient Greek heroes like Theseus navigating labyrinthine seas, or the Polynesian navigators who communed with ocean spirits through masterful swimming. So renowned became his talents that he was offered a position to teach swimming to nobility, an invitation he declined amid his burgeoning political pursuits, yet the tales persisted, earning him an honorary induction into the International Swimming Hall of Fame centuries later, a hidden accolade that underscores his role as a bridge between physical vitality and intellectual vigor. Inspired perhaps by the holistic disciplines of Roman baths where body and mind harmonized in steamy sanctuaries, influencing his later advocacy for hydrotherapy and air baths as paths to rejuvenation. Amid these personal eccentricities lay his foundational contributions to communal safety, often eclipsed by grander narratives, such as his orchestration of Philadelphia's first volunteer fire company in 1736, the Union Fire Company, affectionately dubbed Benjamin Franklin's Bucket Brigade, a grassroots initiative born from the ashes of frequent blazes that ravaged wooden colonial structures. Drawing organizational wisdom from the firefighting guilds of ancient Rome, where citizens banded under imperial edicts to combat infernos with aqueduct-fed buckets and hooks, a forgotten civic alchemy that transformed chaos into order and saved countless lives and livelihoods. This endeavor, shrouded in the mists of everyday heroism, reflected his Masonic ethos of brotherhood and mutual aid, where symbols of unity from Solomon's temple inspired real-world fortifications against disaster, much like the vigilant watchtowers of medieval castles guarding against fiery sieges. And it paved the way for modern firefighting networks, a legacy that burns quietly in the annals of public service. Further enigmas unfold in the intimate tapestries of his familial bonds and moral musings, where Franklin's youthful embrace of vegetarianism at 16, motivated by thrift and ethics to spare funds for books while pondering the soul's transmigration across forms as in Pythagorean doctrines, gave way to a humorous relapse upon the scent of fried cod during a sea voyage, a moment of frailty he chronicled with self-deprecating wit. Revealing the imperfect journey toward virtue that mirrored the cyclical rebirths in Eastern philosophies he encountered through exotic tomes. Yet this dietary detour concealed a broader fascination with bodily humors, culminating in his infamous 1781 essay, Fart Proudly, a satirical proposal to the Royal Academy of Brussels for researching odorless flatulence through scientific additives, drawing from Galenic theories of internal winds and the elemental balances of ancient alchemy, a whimsical treatise that poked fun at academic pomposity while unveiling human indignities with the levity of spotty tailies, inviting readers to laugh at the universal mysteries of the flesh. These lesser-veiled vignettes, the electrifying turkey mishap invoking divine rebukes, pseudonymous satires weaving scandalous allusions, Thames swims echoing mythic voyages, bucket brigades forging communal shields, vegetarian lapses in philosophical feasts, flatulent follies satirizing scholarly airs, illuminate Franklin as a delightful weirdo whose life was a symphony of surprises, harmonizing the arcane whispers of antiquity with the bold strokes of American originality. Lulling the spirit into a peaceful drift through history's enchanted groves, where each revelation cradles the imagination in the soft embrace of timeless curiosity, guiding the weary traveler toward the gentle harbor of dreams. Yet as the gentle tides of Benjamin Franklin's multifaceted saga wash over the shores of forgotten lore, carrying with them the subtle fragrances of ink, thunder, and ancient parchment, we glide deeper into the enigmatic underbelly of his revolutionary spirit, where the lines between patriot and dissolve like mist in the dawn of independence. Revealing a man whose cunning maneuvers in the shadows of empire echoed the stealthy intrigues of ancient spies from the courts of Persia or the veiled agents of Byzantine emperors, who wove webs of deception to safeguard their realms. Consider the clandestine chapter of Franklin's escapade in 1772, a daring act that ignited the flames of rebellion long before the shots at Lexington, when he procured leaked letters from Massachusetts Governor Thomas Hutchinson, documents urging the Crown to curtail colonial liberties with an iron fist, proclaiming, "There must be an abridgment of what are called English liberties," and surreptitiously forwarded them to allies in Boston. Hoping to expose the insidious machinations of loyalist puppets and avert escalation, yet the publication exploded like a powder keg fueling outrage that rippled through taverns and town halls, much like the inflammatory scrolls of ancient agitators who toppled tyrants with words sharper than swords. This hidden maneuver, shrouded in anonymity until fate forced his hand, led to a dramatic confrontation before the British Privy Council in 1774, where Solicitor General Alexander unleashed a torrent of vitriol for an hour, mocking Franklin's electrical fame with puns that stung like venomous barbs, branding him a thief and incendiary while the sage stood silent in his spotted Manchester velvet suit, absorbing the humiliation that crystallized his resolve. A stoic endurance reminiscent of Socrates facing the hemlock, and in a poetic twist of revenge, he donned the same garment years later at the signing of the 1783 Treaty of Paris, sealing Britain's defeat with defiant elegance, a forgotten sartorial symbol of triumph over adversity that whispered of karmic cycles from Eastern philosophies he had glimpsed in colonial libraries. Delving further into the arcane alcoves of his inventive whimsy, Franklin's creation of the glass in 1761 emerges as a haunting melody from the ether, an instrument of nested glass bowls spun by a foot pedal to produce ethereal tones through moistened fingers, evoking the celestial harmonies of the spheres as described in Pythagorean cosmologies, where music unlocked the universe's mathematical secrets. And its siren-like sounds enchanted audiences from Philadelphia parlors to European courts, with composers like penning pieces for its otherworldly voice, yet veiled rumors spoke of its darker enchantments, performers driven to melancholy or madness by prolonged exposure to its vibrations, as if the tones resonated too deeply with the soul's hidden frequencies, mirroring the trance-inducing lyres of Orpheus in Greek myths that could soothe beasts or shatter stones. Franklin himself wielded it with maestro's grace, using it in therapeutic sessions to calm the afflicted, a subtle fusion of science and sorcery that hinted at his deistic beliefs in a harmonious creator, much like the vibrational essences in ancient Hindu mantras that aligned body and cosmos, a forgotten innovation that faded amid superstitions but left an indelible echo in the annals of auditory wonders. In the peaceful undercurrents of his environmental prescience, Franklin's 1751 essay, Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, unfolds as a prophetic scroll, forecasting America's demographic surge while cautioning against the strains of overpopulation on resources. Insights drawn from the cyclical booms and busts chronicled in ancient Roman censuses or the agrarian harmonies of Confucian treatises that emphasized balance with nature. Yet concealed within were advocacy for sustainable practices inspired by his dialogues with Native American elders during frontier treaties, where he learned of crop rotations and forest preservations that sustained tribes for generations. Hidden indigenous wisdoms he integrated into his own gardening experiments at his Philadelphia estate, cultivating silkworms and exotic herbs in plots that mirrored the botanical gardens of Babylonian hanging wonders. Turning personal curiosity into blueprints for agricultural resilience that foreshadowed modern ecology's calls for stewardship. Amid these intellectual serenades lay the mystery of the Craven Street bones, unearthed in 1998 from the basement of his London residence at 36 Craven Street, a grisly cache of over 1,200 fragments from 15 individuals, including children marked by surgical saw cuts and drill holes, mingled with animal remains like dissected turtles laced with mercury from experimental preservatives, a macabre discovery tied to anatomist William Franklin's lodger and friend who operated a clandestine anatomy school in the house from 1772, procuring cadavers from amid stringent laws limiting bodies to executed criminals, a shadowy pursuit of medical enlightenment that echoed the forbidden dissections of Herophilus in ancient Alexandria, where knowledge of the human form pierced the veil of taboo. Did Franklin, the empiricist par excellence, sanction this subterranean academy beneath his feet, perhaps even participating in late-night lectures illuminated by candlelight that danced like will-o'-the-wisps? The enigma endures, a forgotten testament to the era's desperate hunger for anatomical truths, where progress treaded the thin line between healer and grave robber, much like the dual-edged scalpels of Renaissance masters who advanced surgery through illicit means. Further shadows envelop his postal empire, where as Deputy Postmaster General from 1753, Franklin revolutionized colonial communications by mapping efficient routes and introducing overnight relays that have delivery times, a network that mirrored the Pony Express of ancient Persian kings or the of Roman emperors, facilitating the swift exchange of ideas that fueled enlightenment. Yet hidden within this web were revolutionary undercurrents during the war. His systems became conduits for encrypted missives and intelligence, evading British intercepts with codes inspired by the ciphers of Julius Caesar's commentaries, a clandestine backbone that sustained the Continental Congress's coordination and whispered secrets across the Atlantic, turning the humble mailbag into a vessel of subversion. In the intimate glow of his later reflections, Franklin's autobiography, penned intermittently from 1771 to 1790, reveals a mosaic of moral introspection, chronicling his rise from runaway apprentice to global sage with candid admissions of youthful follies, like his brief debauchery in London or the vegetarian relapse, framed as lessons in the alchemy of self-improvement, echoing the confessional memoirs of Augustine or the introspective diaries of yet unpublished sections lost to time or discretion, hinted at deeper esoteric musings on universal religion, blending deism with pantheistic threads from and the harmonious faiths of ancient Stoics, a hidden synthesis that portrayed divinity as the grand architect of a rational cosmos, free from sectarian chains. These unfolding veils, this defiant suit avenging imperial slights, haunting harmonics bridging soul and science, population prophecies rooted in ancient balances, basement bones unveiling anatomical shadows, postal paths carrying subversive whispers, autobiographical alchemies of the self, cast Franklin as an eternal enigma, a luminous thread connecting the arcane mysteries of yore to the bold dawn of democratic ideals, inviting the wandering mind to meander through history's hushed corridors, where each whispered truth cradles the spirit in a soothing veil of wonder, easing the passage into the velvet realm of restorative slumber. Yet as the soft veil of twilight descends upon the chronicles of Benjamin Franklin's indelible mark on the world, where the flickering candlelight of colonial ambition merges with the eternal glow of enlightened inquiry, we drift further into the lesser-charted waters of his philosophical depths, a realm where reason danced with revelation in ways that echoed the dialectical harmonies of Socratic dialogues or the meditative silences of Zen masters from distant eastern shores. Unveiling a man whose deistic faith painted the universe as a grand clockwork devised by a benevolent architect, free from the dogmatic chains of organized religion, yet infused with a moral compass that guided humanity toward collective betterment. Franklin's creed, articulated in his 1728 Articles of Belief and Acts of Religion, a private manifesto seldom whispered beyond his inner circle, professed a worship of the divine through virtuous deeds rather than rote rituals. Much like the ethical monotheism of ancient Persian Zoroastrians who saw good thoughts, words, and actions as the path to cosmic harmony, a hidden spiritual alchemy that informed his 13 virtues: temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality. Industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. Not as rigid laws but as cyclical practices for self-refinement, each virtue pursued weekly in a ledger of personal accountability, a method akin to the Stoic exercises of Epictetus, whose slave-born wisdom emphasized control over one's inner realm amid external chaos, fostering in Franklin a resilience that weathered personal tragedies and political tempests with equanimous grace. Delving deeper into the shadowed vignettes of his inventive legacy, one uncovers the obscure brilliance of his odometer, a simple yet ingenious device fashioned in the 1770s to measure distances traveled by carriage. Consisting of geared wheels that ticked off miles like the astrolabes of ancient Arab astronomers mapping the stars' eternal journeys, a tool born from his postal reforms to ensure accurate reimbursements for riders. Yet whispering of broader curiosities about motion and measurement that harked back to the mechanical wonders of Archimedes, whose screw and levers unlocked the secrets of leverage in Hellenistic times. This unpatented gadget, often eclipsed by his lightning rod's fame, symbolized Franklin's tireless quest to quantify the world, extending to his mapping of the Gulf Stream during transatlantic voyages, where he shipped captains and dipped thermometers into swirling currents, charting a warm river in the ocean that hastened eastward travels by days, a discovery drawn from the navigational lore of whalers and the tidal mysteries chronicled in Viking sagas. A forgotten oceanographic feat that saved lives and commerce, much like the Polynesian wayfinders who read waves and stars as living maps, inspiring Franklin's advocacy for scientific collaboration across borders in an era of imperial rivalries. In the tranquil ebb of his diplomatic artistry, Franklin's tenure in France from 1776 to 1785 unfolds as a tapestry of charm and cunning, where the septuagenarian sage, clad in rustic fur caps and plain Quaker garb, captivated the Parisian elite with a persona that blended homespun wisdom with worldly wit, securing loans and alliances that bankrolled the revolution's ragged armies. Yet hidden amid the salon flirtations and powdered wigs lay his subtle espionage, decoding encrypted dispatches with ciphers inspired by the substitution codes of Renaissance polymaths like, whose mechanical cipher disks guarded state secrets in Italian courts. One veiled intrigue involved his interception of British agent communications through double agents in the French ministry, whispers of betrayal that could have doomed Valley Forge's starving troops, a shadowy game of shadows reminiscent of the intrigue in ancient Chinese stratagems from Sun's Art of War, where deception was the highest art, culminating in the Treaty of Paris where Franklin's negotiations extracted generous boundaries for the fledgling nation. Including vast Western territories that echoed the imperial expansions of Roman consuls' bargaining peace after Punic Wars, a diplomatic coup shrouded in late-night parleys, where wine flowed and secrets spilled like ink from a quill. Amid these grand maneuvers, the enigma of Franklin's health regimens invites a soothing contemplation, for in his golden years, he embraced air-bathing sitting nude before open windows each morning to let breezes caress his skin, a practice borrowed from the naturist traditions of Spartan warriors hardening their bodies against the elements, or the sweat lodges of Native American shamans purifying the spirit through elemental communion. Believing it invigorated circulation and warded off ailments like the gout that plagued his joints, a quirky ritual detailed in letters to friends with the light-hearted candor of a philosopher at peace with eccentricity, much like the hydrotherapies of Hippocrates prescribing sea baths for vitality in ancient Greece, extending to his invention of swim fins in boyhood wooden pallets that propelled him through rivers with dolphin-like ease. Feats that not only strengthened his frame but symbolized his lifelong immersion in nature's mysteries, from electrical storms to oceanic depths. Further mysteries linger in the personal crypts of his lineage and losses, where the tragic shadow of his son Francis's death at age 4 from smallpox in 1736 haunts the narrative, a preventable sorrow that Franklin later lamented in his autobiography, regretting his delay in inoculation, an emerging procedure he championed after witnessing its success among African slaves and Turkish practitioners, whose techniques traced back to ancient African healing rites involving controlled exposures, a hidden regret that fueled his advocacy for public health measures, much like the plague wards of medieval Venice, isolating the afflicted to stem contagion's tide. This paternal grief intertwined with the rift from his illegitimate son William, whose loyalist governorship of New Jersey led to imprisonment and exile, a familial schism echoing the brotherly betrayals in biblical tales of Cain and Abel or the dynastic fractures in Egyptian pharaonic lines, where blood ties sundered under political storms. Yet Franklin's will disinherited William with stern finality, channeling his estate toward civic endowments that accrued interest over centuries. A temporal legacy that by the 20th century funded scholarships and apprenticeships, turning modest sums into fortunes through the magic of compound growth, akin to the usury debates in Aristotelian economics where time value in ethical quandaries. In the serene glow of his abolitionist twilight, Franklin's presidency of the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery from 1787 marked a crescendo of conscience, petitioning Congress in 1790, mere months before his death, to dismantle the institution he once tolerated but grew to abhor, decrying the chains that mirrored the serfdoms of feudal Europe or the slave galleys of ancient Rome. A moral evolution inspired by Quaker testimonies and the egalitarian whispers from Enlightenment salons, yet hidden correspondences reveal his quiet support for fugitive escapes via underground networks predating the railroad, subtle aids that echoed the liberation paths of Moses in Exodus narratives, a final act of defiance against human bondage that sowed seeds for future emancipations, even as his own household once included enslaved servants he manumitted in his will. A complex humanity laid bare in the folds of history. These threads, the deistic clockwork of faith, odometers measuring fate's miles, French intrigues weaving victory's web, air baths communing with winds, filial shadows of loss and legacy, abolition's moral dawn illuminate Franklin as a timeless voyager, navigating the confluence of ancient enigmas and modern marvels with a spirit that inspires the soul to wander freely through the annals of time, where each hidden truth unfolds like a dreamscape petal, gently lulling the listener into the embracing hush of profound repose. Yet as the whispers of Benjamin Franklin's enduring enigma fade into the soft cadence of historical reverie, where the boundaries between fact and forgotten lore blur like the edges of a dream at dawn, we meander deeper into the intricate web of his scientific correspondences, a network of letters that spanned oceans and intellects, connecting him to the luminaries of his age in a symphony of shared discovery that echoed the epistolary exchanges of ancient scholars like Cicero and Seneca, whose missives preserved the flames of knowledge through Rome's golden era. Franklin's prolific pen, dashing off over 20,000 letters in his lifetime, unveiled hidden collaborations, such as his 1751 exchange with Swedish botanist Peter on the migration patterns of swallows, debunking myths of underwater hibernation with empirical observations drawn from Native American trackers and the migratory tales in Aristotle's Natural Histories, a quiet revelation that advanced ornithology while symbolizing Franklin's boundless curiosity. Much like the wandering philosophers of old who sought truths in the flight of birds as omens from the gods, these missives, often laced with wit and wisdom, concealed deeper layers, encrypted notes during wartime that safeguarded revolutionary secrets, employing simple substitution ciphers reminiscent of the used by Spartan generals, wrapping messages around rods to confound enemies, a clandestine art that ensured the safe passage of intelligence across hostile seas, fostering alliances that turned the tide of independence. Delving further into the veiled alcoves of his civic ingenuity, Franklin's founding of the American Philosophical Society in 1743 emerges as a beacon of collective enlightenment, a learned assembly modeled after the Royal Society of London yet infused with democratic zeal, where members probed the mysteries of nature from comet trajectories to fossilized relics that hinted at prehistoric worlds long submerged in geological mists. Much like the academies of Plato, where dialogues unraveled the cosmos's enigmas. This society, under Franklin's presidency from 1769, sponsored expeditions and experiments that mapped uncharted territories, including his own contributions to meteorology through kite-borne thermometers that gauged atmospheric layers, insights predating modern weather balloons and echoing the wind charts of ancient Babylonian astrologers who divined seasons from celestial winds. A forgotten endeavor that laid groundwork for forecasting systems saving crops and voyages from nature's whims. In the peaceful flow of his later diplomatic reflections, Franklin's role in the Constitutional Convention of 1787 reveals a sage mediator amid heated debates. His speech on the final day, delivered by proxy due to frailty, urging compromise with the humble analogy of the sun carved on Washington's chair, questioning whether it rose or set on the new nation, a rhetorical flourish drawn from the symbolic suns in Egyptian hieroglyphs representing renewal and eternity. A hidden plea for unity that helped ratify the document, much like the conciliatory orations of Pericles in Athenian assemblies forging fragile alliances. Yet beneath this public poise lay personal vulnerabilities. His battle with kidney stones in old age prompted self-experiments with herbal diuretics and electrical therapies, blending folk remedies from colonial almanacs with the voltaic piles of his Italian correspondent Volta, a subtle fusion of traditions that alleviated suffering and foreshadowed electrotherapy's evolution, akin to the healing currents described in ancient Indian Ayurvedic texts where vital energies restored bodily harmony. Amid these intellectual serenades, the mystery of Franklin's musical compositions invites a melodic contemplation. For beyond this invention, he crafted airs and ballads on harp and violin, including a quartet for strings that evoked the chamber music of Baroque masters like, whose harmonies mirrored the mathematical proportions of Pythagorean scales. Yet Franklin's tunes, often improvised in junto gatherings, carried folksy strains influenced by Scottish ballads and African rhythms he encountered through enslaved musicians in his household, a cultural amalgamation that whispered of transatlantic exchanges long before jazz's birth, a forgotten artistic vein that soothed his mind amid political storms, much like the lyre-strumming bards of Homeric epics who calmed heroes with song. Further enigmas surface in his economic philosophies, articulated in essays like The Way to Wealth, compiled from Poor Richard's Proverbs in 1757, a compendium of thrift and prudence that sold millions, drawing from the agrarian maxims of Hesiod's works and days in ancient Greece, where diligence warded off poverty's curse, yet hidden within were critiques of speculative bubbles, inspired by his observations of the South Sea bubble's collapse. Advocating steady industry over risky ventures, principles that echoed the balanced ledgers of Venetian merchants whose debauchery bookkeeping guarded fortunes in Renaissance trade, influencing Franklin's own financial ascent from penniless runaway to affluent retiree by 42, channeling profits into public goods like street lighting, his promotion of whale oil lamps illuminating Philadelphia's nights. A practical innovation rooted in the luminescent lore of ancient Phoenician sailors navigating by bioluminescent seas. In the intimate hush of his family chronicles, the story of his daughter Sarah, affectionately called Sally, unfolds as a thread of quiet devotion, managing his household during absences and marrying Richard amid scandalous whispers of his insolvency, yet proving a steadfast partner in philanthropy, co-founding ladies' associations that aided revolutionary soldiers with sewn garments and funds, efforts mirroring the charitable guilds of medieval nuns who tended the afflicted. A hidden matriarchal legacy that extended Franklin's civic ethos through generations, with Sally's descendants preserving his papers and artifacts, safeguarding the enigma of his life for posterity like the archival scribes of Alexandria's great library. These layered revelations, the epistolary bridges spanning minds, philosophical societies probing nature's veil, constitutional suns rising on unity, electrical healings harmonizing body, musical airs blending cultures, economic wisdoms forging wealth, familial threads weaving devotion, portray Franklin as an inexhaustible wellspring of wonder, a conduit linking the arcane echoes of antiquity to the vibrant pulse of American possibility, where each uncovered truth invites the heart to linger in history's gentle embrace, soothing the senses with the rhythmic flow of timeless tales, easing the journey into the tranquil depths of restorative dreams. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Thank you and